welcome to More Than Footy, brought to you by Bingley. I'm Hayley Faulkner.
And I'm Tom Chadwick. Great to have your company yet again after what was, Hayley, a fairly tough loss against Port Adelaide over the weekend, 112 points, but we look ahead to taking on one of our rivals in Collingwood on Friday night.
We sure do. And speaking about looking ahead or moving on, I don't know if anyone notices, for those who are tuning in on the audio
Olympic
wavelengths,
themed.
we're Olympic themed, and that is because we're joined by one of the greats, Michael Klim. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's an honour.
Mate, as we mentioned, obviously Olympic themed podcast. Have you kept your eye on Paris? How's the sleep going?
Absolutely, I have. You know, I love this time around every 4 years. It's brings back a lot of great memories, and people always pat you on your back and tell you how good you were, which is always good for the ego. No, I do enjoy it, and it's great to see that, you know, such a progression in the Aussie swim team and in the Olympic team in general. So yeah, definitely, using the toothpicks to stay awake a few times, but no, it's it's a great time of the year.
Gosh, we've done well, but what's been your highlight watching our Aussies?
Look, I love obviously the start of the Olympics with that big sort of those 72 hours where just Arnie and Molly and, you know, one after another, but then to see Cam McAvoy win on his fourth try to go in probably one of the toughest events ever, because it just 50-free, there's no room for error. You know, he put it all on the line by changing his training 180 degrees, and and knowing him personally and being part on that journey a little bit. So yeah, seeing Cam succeed was awesome.
I just want to pick you up on that. Did you play any role in coaching him as a young man, Cam McAvoy?
Look, I've been fortunate enough that the Aussie swim team has brought me back for a bunch of relay camps, and even I was there in the staging camp before Rio, and also just before just after the Paris team announcement. So I spoke to the team and was on pool deck for a number of sessions. So, but even outside of that, I've kept kind of connection with some of those guys that were, you know, they knocked me out of the pool when I was doing my comeback in 2012, but remained friends with those guys. And Cam was one that I really liked because of his different approach to swimming in general, and the fact that I think everyone felt, including him, that he had unfinished business. He never swam to his potential, and at the Olympic Games. So for him to finally get that goal was awesome.
Take us back to Sydney 2000. We don't have all the time in the world, but I'd love to hear some of your favourite memories from there.
Well, again, you know, it's having an Olympic Games on home soil is so special. So for anyone out there, you know, eyeing off 2032, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. So again, I was on the 1 year to go, the front page of the paper, 1 year to go to the Olympics, and there was such a build up, a lot of expectation, and I was just fortunate enough that we were able to generate this team that came from all around Australia, and we had all different random people from Thorpe to Chris Vidal, Ashley Callis, and on a night that had a lot of drama with Thorpe winning and then having suit malfunctions, and then Gary Hall saying he's going to smash us like guitars, and really being the real underdog in the 4x1 freestyle relay, and just putting it all together on that night where we knew we had to throw it to the Americans early and make them over race, and really after that, when the crowd kind of took over the race and everyone was on their feet, it was just magical. So for me, it's hard to go past that moment, even though I won another gold medal a couple of nights later and then had a individual medal as well. That opening night for me, it just blows my mind.
That opening night in particular, it's one of those sort of moments in Australian sport. I still remember where I was. I was a teenager at the time. Do you get people coming from all over the world saying, I remember where I was that opening night when you guys won the 4x1? Yeah,
absolutely. That's the thing that we, as athletes, sometimes you don't realise that you can have such a positive impact on the society, and people come up to me and say, I was at Belconnen pub, or we made our baby that night, and I was like, that's a little bit too much info, but whatever gets you off. So we get some really I get some really interesting people, and now even with my partnership with Lifeblood, it's been interesting that not only the older demographic remember those times, but now there's been a younger kind of demographic through the campaign that go and Google what happened in 2000, which is great.
We'll touch on your partnership with Lifeblood in a second. I just want to ask though, the air guitars, was that a pre-plan? Did you know you guys were going to get up there and do it?
We certainly didn't plan it, but there was, someone was ingenious to kind of throw it out there, and there was no hesitation. It was just kind of like everything that was happening behind the scenes behind the blocks that night. It was just spur of the moment, adulation is just pure joy. It's kind of now I'm glad we celebrate it that way, because it's sort of, we still feature in the Olympic highlights, but but it was just, that's what you see, what the Olympics actually mean to the athletes and everyone that was involved. So.
And there was no malice, was there? Because you're actually quite good mates with Gary Hall Jr. And funnily enough, doing the research for this podcast, a lot of the quote that he said when he said he was going to smash you like guitars, he gave Australia about a 3 or 4 minute compliment, and then said one thing, and it was taken out of context. That's right.
Get out of town.
But it seems like you're quite good mates with him.
Absolutely. So Gary, like you said, so he's always respected Aussies as being really formidable opponents, and he gave this full Sports Illustrated article that he really said Aussies are going to be really tough to beat on home soil, and but he said, I'm going to smash the Aussies like my Gibson guitars. And we took off the Gibson. We didn't want to give Gibson any plug, did we? Just smash the Americans where we could. But he's been really great since. Has actually. It's taken him a while to overcome being the villain, really, in the story, because he does respect the Aussie swimmers and Australian swimming so much, and he's been vilified so much in the press. And whereas I knew him for the true sportsman that he was, and he brought the theatre to whenever he was swimming, not just that relay, but every other time coming out and doing shadow boxing or wearing a boxing robe behind the blocks. And he had this persona that he was an extrovert when he needed to be, and then he was a pretty, he was one of the best sprinters ever as well. So, and we've remained friends ever since. He's actually on my Klim Foundation board, and very supportive of all of my health issues that I've had. Probably feels bad for me after all that. But, he's a true legend.
Now, talk us through, you touched on your health issues, talk us through how your partnership with Lifeblood came about. And I guess let's start at the beginning. How did it, it's CIDP?
Yeah, very good, yeah.
Run us through what that stands for and how that condition came about.
Yeah, so let's, I'll take you back to 2019. I was walking around with a really dodgy ankle, and I had a bad ankle from years of, playing basketball, but then swimming, and then doing a bit of stuff outside of the pool after my career, and my back started playing up as well, and one thing led to another. I needed my ankle fused, and I needed a back operation, and my body was really sort of screaming for help. And around that same time, I started noticing all these different changes in my legs and feelings, and changes in sensation and colour, and and started getting biopsies and tests, and it took a bit of time to come up with the diagnosis, but it ended up being CIDP, which is chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy. That's right. And it's where your nerves start to fray on the outside, and that signals isn't sent all that well. It is mainly with your extremities. So for me, it's from my feet upwards. It sort of stopped halfway up my shin, which is not so bad. I wear some AFOs or braces to help me not trip up over myself. And I was put onto a treatment called IVIG treatment pretty much before my diagnosis, which is a plasma-derived treatment to help inflammation and regeneration as well. And I was going along I still am. I'm here actually in Sydney for my treatment, which I'll be going to RPA for. And the great guys at Lifeblood approached me to say, well, your medication that you're using is derived from plasma. It's got some great antibodies that, they're obviously benefiting you. Would you help us promote the International Plasma Awareness Week? And I thought it was, it's a perfect fit. I was in a really tough spot physically and mentally because I lost my identity. I sort of lost my physical ability as well, and kind of felt a little bit lost. And Lifeblood gave me a little bit of motivation to do something positive with the condition that I have and raise an awareness for a cause that is so much needed from plasma and blood donations, nationally. So, yeah, I've turned my kind of diagnosis into something quite positive.
Tell us about the specific treatment. Of course, we've got the Lifeblood Donor Centre here at Swans HQ in Moore Park. But tell us about, you mentioned it's 4 hours per treatment session. Just tell us about exactly what it looks like.
So IVIG I receive every 6 weeks and 2 days in a row, and one of those days it takes 32 donors for one of my treatments. So 2 days back to back, that's 64 donors for one of my treatments, and there's every 6 weeks. So that gives you an understanding of how much plasma donations are required to. And that's why I'm so appreciative of everyone that donates. And we were downstairs before. There's a couple of coppers that came in to donate as well. But everyone is really playing a hand. And, you have some really unsung heroes that just come in regularly every 2 weeks or every month. And they actually physically make a difference in other people's lives. So it's I love the fact that you're actually giving away something tangible. It's something in your body that you can actually make a really positive impact in other people's lives.
And it's something we can donate more than we can do blood, isn't it? We can donate plasma more often, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So plasma you can donate as often as every 2 weeks. Blood is sort of generally every 4 weeks, or am I about right? 4 weeks. So 3 months.
3 months. Yeah.
We'll correct that. It's every 3 months. So so that's So it's great. Obviously, the machines are there. It's an amazing process. You're watching the plasma being separated from your blood as you sit there, and it's over within an hour generally.
And importantly, what improvements have you seen in your sort of quality of life since taking this treatment?
Well, I was going downhill really quickly, so I lost the ability to walk kind of unaided, and really couldn't. One of my jobs now is being a coach and running swim schools and clinics and camps. I was really restricted in terms of how much time I could spend on my feet, but I can, I measure my steps. I can get up to over 10,000 steps and run a couple of sessions a day, no problem. But it's also just maintaining a really good quality of life rather than going up and down. From my nerve conduction studies, and there's incremental increase, but in terms of just overall, if I look at the quality of life, the impact's been huge. So I'm really grateful for that.
You mentioned your swim school just before. Tell us about that, and it's in Bali.
Yeah.
I'd love to know, how did it come to be in Bali, and what's taken you over there?
Well, Klim swim started in Australia in 1997, so I've had swim schools for a long time, and COVID was hard on many fronts, and we had a number of swim schools in Victoria which we had to close down because of COVID and staff retention, and obviously when you have no customers that was also pretty tough to stay open, and I got diagnosed, and I also exited my old business, so I needed to kind of find something to do, and one thing that I had was still a lot of passion for was swimming and giving back, and swim teaching. So we had a great relationship with the Finns Recreation Club over there in Bali, and we started our first swim school 3 years ago. Now we've got 3 in Bali, 1 in Jakarta as well. So it's giving back to the next generation. Water is such an amazing thing that it can, not only as a skill but from swimming point of view, but in terms of water safety, and it's a skill that you can take for the rest of your life, or just to save your life. It's really important.
Now, coming back full circle, we can't be in a footy club on our podcast without asking you about Aussie rules.
Yeah.
Originally a Saints man, but Swans is your second team,
yes,
I hear.
Correct.
But just tell us, tell us about your connection to Aussie rule. You're a Melbourne boy?
Melbourne boy. Yeah. I arrived in Australia in 1989, and I was 11 years of age, and I was living in Moorabbin, just off South Road, and everyone would park in those side streets going to Linton Oval, and I was fascinated with how fanatical and mad the supporters were, really, and especially going down to Moorabbin, Dad and I went down one weekend and watching Plugger kicking so many goals, and Nicky Winmar, and it was Rob Harvey was my favourite player by far for many years, and we had our first swim school actually at the King Club, which is down in Sandy, where the Saints used to do all their rehab and all their training. So I had a real connection with the club, and then obviously when Plugger moved up here, my heart was with him, and I so the Saints, the Swans became my second favourite team, and then obviously '98 we became the Coleman medalists again and broke the record for the most goals. I was riding that bandwagon as well.
Have you ever met Plugger?
Yeah, I have, which was, it was a bit surreal. It's when you look up to someone at the age of 10, 11, 12, and you meet him in real life, it's and he's actually such an introverted person out off the field. So it was, quite a weird sensation.
Well, Michael, you're doing some fantastic work with Lifeblood, and your story is genuinely inspiring. So we wish you well, and thanks very much for coming on More Than Footy.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks, go the Bloods.
Exactly right.